we're going to download the LibrePilot program so we can do the setup on your CC3D. So go to LibrePilot.org, and this is what you're going to pull up. Go to Downloads, and here we'll get the latest release, 16.09. So here's where you can scroll down and download your program. So choose your liking, and this is where you'll do it. It's real handy, I guess, or real good for you to go ahead and go through everything, and that way, if you run into any issues after you have the program pulled up, you can go to this area right here to help you get some answers. But I would make sure that I have the drivers picked when you go to download. Okay, so I'm on Windows, and I'll go here. And we'll have to wait a little while. Okay, now that it's downloaded, we'll continue. And we want English. And here, we're going to check the drivers. And once again, we'll wait for it to be completed. Okay, now we'll continue. And we're finished. Okay, your program has been loaded, and this is what you'll see. First of all, we've gone through the frame build. We've installed the motors. We've installed the ESC. We've installed the controller. We've installed the receiver. We've applied power for the first time to the quad. And we bound, we did the binding between the transmitter and the receiver. So now we're ready to go ahead and program the controller or set up the controller. Until this point, none of the motors would work. Nothing's really working except for a blue and a green light maybe flash. We're going to go ahead and plug in the USB into the controller. And now we'll plug the USB into the computer. So now you may see that a few lights are populating here, and that's just saying that the system is connected, and so far it's in good health. Everything's looking okay. Okay, so we're going to go to vehicle setup next. Good to read along with this. I'll, tell you a little bit of what's going on, but take your time when you're doing it and go through, read through everything. This right here, we're basically saying, be careful, no props. Next, let's go ahead and upgrade. Now what we're doing here, if you'll read it, we're upgrading the firmware on the controller to the most current that they have. So we'll wait here, and when it's done in this area right here, it'll say next and continue on. In this, you do not want to get in a hurry with this. Take your time with it. Read it through. This is the fun part. You're coming right up to the end. You're getting close to flying it. You may get this message here. Don't worry about it. And here you'll see it says next, ready to move on. This is just telling you a little bit about which board that you have, control board that you have. And we'll hit next here. Okay, this is wanting to know which receiver that you have. We're using a PWM. There's a lot of information out there on all the different types of receivers. You know, one of the main things is that your transmitter is going to have to match up to the receiver. Anyway, this is what we're using, PWM. Next. Of course, what type of vehicle? We're using a multi-rotor. Next. And this is where you pick, you know, the quad that you have, or the vehicle that you have, rather. This is, of course, what you have. Quadcopter X, just to show you a few of the others. You'll know fairly easy if you're in the wrong place. So, this is what we want. It pulls this up naturally, but you need to verify that. Next. The ESCs, we're going to be using the Rapid ESC here. Once you pick your receiver and your ESC that you're using, it gives you a little wiring diagram. If you'll notice, this is exactly how we wired it in. This is the wire that we're not using, and this is it. If you're using this in a teaching environment, of course, you can print this out, and it's real handy. So we'll go ahead and close this. So this is just another double check that you know, the way you wired it in is indeed correct to what you've picked so far. Here we're going to tell the controller what's level. And you want to make sure that you're on a level surface, and go ahead and hit calculate. So when this is happening, I would make sure that, you know, you don't touch anything. Just leave it be. And quickly, it's done. We'll move on. We're going to sync up the motors to the ESC. So go ahead and read this, and again, no props. Click off the 3 boxes. What we're going to do next is that we're going to hit start or press start. Have your battery ready and have your battery fully charged, because when we hit start, we're going to, after that, we're going to go ahead and plug in the battery to the quad. You'll get a series of tones. Whenever they stop, click stop here, and you'll get another series of tones. And if everything goes good, then it'll say that it's healthy, it's been synced together. So we'll go ahead and click start. We're going to plug in the battery. That's the series of tones we were talking about. Now we're going to hit stop. This is telling you that your ESC and motors are synced up. So they've been calibrated. Now we're going to go to next. By the way, if you hear anything other than what the sounds that you just heard on here, you may have a problem with, you know, your ESC or wiring, but you know, you want to make sure that you're getting this same series of tones on this particular ESC. Now each ESC is going to be a little bit different tone. You know, if we're using a different type of ESC, you'll get a different type of tone or a different series of tones. For this particular one, we're using the SpeedX 4-in-1. If you've been following, again, this series of build videos, this is the tone you'll hear. Again, if you hear it, if you have a different ESC installed, set of ESCs installed, whether it be a 401 or separates, it's going to be a different tone possibly. Okay, so we're going to move on. Again, remove the propellers. And if you remember the build that we just finished, this is the front of the quad, this is the back. So front, this is motor number 1, 2, 3, 4, just the way we did. So now we're going to spin up the motors for the first time. We're going to hit start, and when we move the slider, this motor here should start turning. Okay, it's turning and we're going clockwise. Great. Now we're going to set our minimum, and that's where it will remain turning steady. So let's go to about here, 1037. Okay, we'll hit stop. We're going to go to next, and here we'll hit start again. This is going to be motor number 2. Move the slider. That is indeed motor number 2 turning, and it is going counterclockwise. Great. We're going to go ahead and you can use the arrow keys after you've moved the slider a little bit. You can just, use the arrow keys after that. So to set the fine, adjustments on it. But we're going to again go to 1037 on this one. Next motor, this should be the motor. We're going to go ahead and hit start, move the slider. Again, this is motor number 3 turning, and this is turning counterclockwise. So let's go ahead and stop it, and we're going to go ahead and move any 2 wires, and we're doing that. And that will change your rotation. So let's go ahead and hit start again. Again, this is motor number 3, and now it's turning clockwise. It matches. Cool. So let's go ahead and set our minimum, and we'll hit stop. We're going to try out motor number 4. Let's move the slider. Again, this is motor number 4, and it is turning the right direction. It's going counterclockwise. And let's go ahead and set our minimum, and we're done. So now we've checked motor 1, 2, 3, and 4. We verified that indeed each motor is that motor that's supposed to be turning, and that each one is going in a proper direction. If you go to test motor number 1 and actually motor number 2 comes on, it's just telling you that the motors are wired in the wrong location on your controller. So when we wired in the motors to the controller, and we had motor number 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we connected, if they're not coming on in the proper sequence that we've just tested, it's as simple as just moving one of your motor wires. So verify that. You may want to go back to the video and just make sure that was done correctly. Again, verifying that all the motors are operating in the proper direction and also operating in the proper location. So we'll move on. There's some preset PIDs in the controller, or that you can pick to load into the controller. QuadLugs flies very, very good on generic Quad X setting. You can adjust PIDs later on and fine tune it a little bit more, but I'll tell you, I've flown these a lot, and with this setting here, it flies extremely well. I think you'll be more than satisfied the way this flies. So let's move on. Okay, so we're going to, again, read this and we'll save it. Okay, the setup on your quad is done, on the controller is done. Now we're going to go through the transmitter wizard. Again, nothing's going to work right or work until this is done. So let's go ahead. The battery has been plugged in since we plugged it in when we did the ESC calibration. Now we're going to unplug the quad. Okay? And we're going to pick Transmitter Setup Wizard. And again, this is safety. And it's just saying that it's going to be disarmed the whole time until we tell it that we want to arm it at the very end. So let's go ahead and turn your transmitter on. Let's go ahead and plug in the quad. Again, you're hearing those tones. Now it's saying it's fine. A little bit different set of tones from when you calibrated the ESC. That was during the calibration period. Now the tones that you're currently getting when you plug in the battery, this is all proper. So here, go ahead and read again, and we're going to hit next. This is what we want right here. You would think that you want to pick helicopter maybe. You don't. You really want fixed wing or quad. So there, you're correct there. Hit next. We're flying mode 2. That's in mainly in the States. There's some people flying mode 1, and especially if you go overseas, you know, a lot of it's mode 1 there. But here, mode 2. And again, if you read this, this applies to you. This is where you should be. Now here we're going to hit next. What we're going to be doing is, you know, letting the transmitter know the settings on the controller. In other words, when we move these sticks, it's just going to verify and set those points into the controller so the transmitter and the controller are synced together. So here it's asking you to move your throttle. Okay, you'll see that it took it. It knows that's the throttle. Now we're going to move the aileron, and it took it. And we're moving the pitch, and it took it. Here we're moving the yaw, or rudder, and it took it. Now we're going to be moving the mode switch on our transmitter, and that was it. Here it took it. These switches here, there's going to be 4 more. We're not going to be using those. So we hit next or skip, 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 skip. Okay, now here we're going to center the transmitter to match what we're seeing here. So throttle is going to be centered and rudder, and the aileron and pitch are going to be centered here. We're also going to take this switch here, our mode switch, and move it to the middle. You know, there's 3 different locations there for your switch. We're going to move it to the middle. Okay? So the only thing we're doing here is that we're matching. Okay? So we hit next. Now here, if you see going all crazy, it's going to want you to go to all the 4 corners, extreme 4 corners of the sticks, and also the mode switch here. So let's get started. And you'll see it here. It's going to all the 4 corners. Now it may be in reverse. We're going to check that in a minute. Just go to all the 4 corners, and you can see me moving them there, here. Okay. And do that 2 or 3, 4 times even. It won't hurt. Okay. And then bring the throttle back down. Now we're going to do this one. And you'll see it moving to all the 4 corners. Okay. And now we're going to do the switch. There may be a little bit of lag time between the transmitter and the computer that you're, or you know, the screen here that you're watching, and that's okay. There will not be a lag time when you're flying it. Okay, so this is working via the switch. So now what we're doing is that we're using our transmitter in our hands to make sure that it's matching what we're seeing here. Let's go next. So let's move the throttle up. That's correct. Now we're checking the correct direction, make sure everything's moving the right way. We're moving our transmitter to the left, the rudder to the left, and you can see it's moving the opposite way. Let's go ahead and hit reverse here. And now we move it to the left. It's correct. We're moving the transmitter right, and that's correct. Now we're going to move the aileron to the left, and that's backwards. So let's reverse roll. Here we go. Now that's left, and that's right. So that's correct. We're pulling the pitch or the elevator back, and it's going up. So that's wrong. So let's go ahead and reverse that. Now we're pulling it back on the transmitter in our hand, and it's matching. Now we're pushing forward, and it's matching. So the only thing we're doing now is making sure that the transmitter in your hand, when you move that particular stick that you're moving, that it's going the same way. Everything is matching from your sticks in your hands to what you see visually on the screen. Okay, that's correct. And all of this is correct. So we're in good shape. Let's hit next. We've been doing a lot of double checking in our setup, in our build, and this is again where we're double checking. It just wants you here to make sure throttle's up, throttle's down. Again, we're moving the transmitter in our hand to match. We move rudder to the left, rudder to the right. Pull the throttle back down. We know that's all correct. We're going to move the aileron to the left. There it is. Right. There it is. Pitch or elevator down. The same up. And everything's matching. So make sure you're happy with that. And then on your mode switch, we're moving all three positions. And you can see it working. Okay. Now let's go ahead, and if you've noticed, I normally like to have all my switches pushed forward. We're going to look at that in a minute, and I'll show you how to change that if you want to. Let's hit next. This is where we're going to choose our arming method. So let's go here, and we're going to pick yaw right. Now what that means, let's go ahead and save this first. And this you have to save. So we've picked yaw right. And what that means is that when we go to arm the quad or the controller, the throttle has to be all the way down and rudder or yaw all the way to the right. Whenever I do this, this is going to be the only time you're going to hear a voice command coming from the computer saying that it's armed. After we are done and we pull it off the computer, you'll never hear that again. When you arm it, it'll be armed. The best way to do it is to test it with a little bit of throttle, and we'll do that after a while. I'll show you how we do that. So first time to arm it, we're all the way down on throttle, yaw to the right.
Armed.
Now it's telling you everything has worked. It's armed. So let's give it a little bit of throttle, and they're turning. Now you'll notice that these motors, when you pull the throttle back, they stop pretty quick. The ESC that we're using, the ESC is telling these motors to stop. This is a very, very good ESC that we've gone to, and when the motors stop like that, it helps out a whole lot in doing, special maneuvers. Later on, when you start doing flips and all that stuff, this comes to be a big asset whenever you start doing all of that. That's yet, though, in the future. But I just want you to be aware of that so you're not alarmed. That's what it does. So if you want to arm the quad, again,
armed.
yaw right, and it's armed. If you want to disarm it, y'all left. It's disarmed. Another way to disarm it is that if you arm it and you let it set for maybe, I think it's set on like 30 seconds, and that's it right there. It's going to disarm itself, and that's safety. So if you arm it and you don't move the throttle or anything, it's going to disarm itself. You'll have to arm it again. It's very good. Okay, so that's done. Let's finish the setup. We still have a few items to do. We're going to check failsafe after a while. This is very critical. If your failsafe isn't working, you want to find out why it's not working. You do not want to fly it without failsafe. What that means is that if you lose connection between the receiver and the transmitter, whether it's a battery issue with the transmitter, or you go out of range, or you're having reception problems, if you don't have a failsafe, it's going to continue on until the battery runs out. So it could be a very bad situation if that happened. So the way we set it up is that failsafe just shuts down everything. Will it crash? Yes. It's better than having it fly on. You don't know where it went. You don't know who's in the way. You don't want that. So failsafe, we'll check that in a minute. We want to make sure the motor's shut down and it comes down as fast as possible. We don't want it to go on. Okay, we'll check that in a minute. The modes. On the switch that we've been flipping there, the mode switch, you can see it moving. And again, there's a little delay here when you're actually using it. Unplugged for the computer, there will be no delay. So if you move this switch, we'll move it into the middle position. There it is. And you see it moving here. We'll move to the next position, and you'll see it here. Again, I like all the switches pushed away from me. If you want to change that, I'll show you in a second how to do that. But for right now, we need to set these, and we're going to use attitude, rate, and we're going to attitude, rate. Here we're going to use attitude, rate, and let's hit save. Pretty obvious what we're doing is that no matter where you put the mode switch, you're going to be in attitude, and that's going to be the safest place for you to learn how to fly. When you get really used to it, you feel comfortable with it, you can start changing these settings here and get a lot more aggressive. And you can also do some settings here and be a lot more aggressive in your flying and start doing flips and all that stuff. For right now, you want to stay here, okay? So no matter what mode you're in, you'll see it's in self-leveling and attitude. You can do a lot in this setting range. For a while, let it do all you want to do, trust me. So let's go here. This is just showing you your movements of your transmitter. I'm moving a transmitter right now, and you can see what it's doing on the program. Now, if we move right now I have the mode switch all the way to the front. If you move it in the middle, you'll see it here. If I push it all the way forward, you see it here. Again, I normally like to have all the switches pushed forward. It's usually a setting where everybody wants to be when you turn on the transmitter. So in order for this to happen, we want to reverse this and this. So we were 1901 here, and we were 1911 here. So let's just change this to 1911 and 1901. I'm sorry, 1101. Let's hit save. You don't want to mess with any of these here. We've already set these in the wizard, so you don't want to mess with these at all. The switch, there was no option to reverse this. So this is where we need to do it if you want to do that. So you can see now the mode switches all the way forward. It's moved it here. This is in the middle. Mode switch pulled all the way towards you. So now you'll see that that's been reversed. So if you like it that way, there you are. Again, don't mess with any of these. So let's start going down our list here. Outputs, again, we're just touching the settings on this. It'll fly on the controller. The controller will fly extremely well the way we're set up, or the way we will be set up when we're finished. You can get into this as much as you want to after you, gain some experience in flying. You get used to it. I'll tell you, you'd be surprised what you can do with this controller. It is amazing. So here, we're not going to be doing anything with it. Okay, next here. If you remember, we put the controller in and we turned it 90 degrees. So when we said we were going to take care of that later on, it's later on. We're doing it now. So we'll go to yaw. If you remember, we turned it 90 degrees. So let's put in here 90 and let's save it. Being that we changed this to compensate for the controller being off 90 degrees, we're going to find that our level calibration that we did is not going to be accurate, and I'm going to show you that now. So let's go to flight data. You'll see that this is really not accurate, okay? The horizon is way off. So let's go back, and again, the quad should be on a level surface. Let's hit level. And again, that's completed, and it'll read this right here, and it'll let you know also what we're doing. Let's hit save. Now this is going to take a little while to settle in, but you'll see how it's already much better, and it takes just a little bit in the horizon to settle up. But let's go ahead and check and make sure that our quad is all moving in the right direction. So we're going to lift the back of the quad up. So we want the front of the quad facing down, and you'll see that's correct. The horizon we've moved facing toward the ground. We're going to lift the front of the quad up, and you'll see that's correct. We're going to lean the quad to the left, and that's correct. We're going to move lean the quad to the right. That's correct. And the yaw we're going to check by rotating, and this is it right here, by rotating it to the left, and that's correct, and rotating to the right, and that's correct. So everything is looking good. And you'll notice now that the horizon right on. Let's go back to configuration. So this is done. Let's move forward. This is where you can change some of the settings to get, snappy, insane. It's just, you can do so much with this, and the sensitivity of the flight controller can change dramatically, meaning you can do tons of things with this controller. It's amazing. Okay, and we're going to move on, and we're completed now. So there's one last thing to do, and we're going to check failsafe. So real easy to do. We're going to arm the transmitter.
Armed.
We're going to give it a little throttle. And now we're going to turn off the transmitter. And it turned off. This is what you want. If anything happens between the transmitter and the receiver, for whatever reason, battery, reception, malfunction, will we lose reception between the transmitter and receiver? This is what happens. Your motor's shut down. It's an excellent way to check. So let's go ahead and turn the transmitter back on. And it came back on. Okay? to pull the throttle down. We're going to disarm it. Everything works. If your fail-safe does not work like we just went through, or like we just tested, you need to get into the manual, find out why it did not work like that, why it did not shut down, and I would not recommend at all to fly it until that's done. Okay, fail-safe, extremely important. You want to make sure it shuts it down. This pretty much completes it now. Your controller is set up. We're ready to trim up the wires and put the props on, make sure everything's in the right direction, and we're ready to do our first test flight. See you in the next one.